Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Orgasmica, the podcast where we talk all about sensuality, sexuality, and all things healing. And today I have a very, very special guest, the most special of them all, my husband. Hi, baby.
Hi, baby.
How are you?
I'm okay.
And this is the first podcast that we do at our home. So welcome to our home.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. It's so pretty. I love it. I wish you guys were able to see what we're seeing. We're seeing a beautiful, beautiful tree.
Yeah, we got a hell of a view.
Yeah, it's a beautiful tree. So recently, a couple of weeks ago, we turned 10 years married. At a beautiful wedding in Big Sur.
March 21st.
And so I thought, and I asked a couple of people on Instagram if they wanted us to do an episode about what we have learned in the past 10 years. And they said they did.
Okay.
And so here we go.
Here we go.
There are things that we are maybe not able to put into words, but we will try to explain them as best as possible. And there are other things that can be very simple and very small to some people, but you know, each experience is their own.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to start with mine. You okay with that? Okay. So the first one for me is that you can still be connected to somebody and have different journeys. And then your journey is separate from mine, and then we have a journey together.
Right.
As a former codependent, or somebody who's always trying to check my codependency, after a lot of shit we have been gone through in this relationship,
right?
I find that the hardest thing for me was to learn that your choices of life, whether that is like a job that you take or don't take, whether that is that like you meditate or don't meditate, whether that is like how you wash the sheets or not, you know, like it's not a reflection of my journey. And that you get to have your own journey and your own experiences with everything. Right. And with your own healing and with your own insights. And then I'm not responsible to fix it or do it for you or try to help in that kind of way, because then it becomes not only codependent, but a fixer, which is something that I always have to be in the lookout for. And you have been imperative in learning how not to fucking do that myself.
Yeah, if anything, I'm a lesson in how to let go if you have to live with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I don't, you know, and because you fight me a lot when I try to fix. You don't let me. And so for me, it used to be like, what do you mean? You know, I'm doing it out of love. And I feel like a lot of women fall into the space of like, you know, he needs to work on this, and I give him this book, and I'll give him this podcast. And, you know, we can share things. I always share podcasts with you and things, but I don't feel like whatever path I am in of self-realization or whatever is necessarily your path.
Right.
Or that we necessarily are going at the same pace. You sometimes go faster than me on some things, and sometimes I go faster with you in some other things.
It's very rare I go faster than you.
No, I don't think so. You're doing a lot of inner work recently. And so I think there is a lot for, like, you're going faster than me and right now, I feel like, on your insights and the things that you're learning about yourself. Because you're in that space. And sometimes we're not in the same space of that, but we can like still be there for each other. And that, you know, I feel like this philosophy or this, what people say is like, you have to grow simultaneously. I don't think that's the case. Because like, I don't think my friends also grow. We don't grow simultaneously. My family, we don't grow simultaneously. And I still have deep, beautiful, intimate relationships with them, you know? And so why do we put that into a couple? I don't understand.
Right.
But I get to remind myself every day that you are in your own journey, that I am in my own journey, and then that we share a journey together. Yeah. So that's one of the lessons. Should I say all the three of mine?
If you want.
Or do you want to comment or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. I'll comment. One of the things you said up the top, connection versus proximity. I think a lot of people confuse connection and proximity. Proximity is not connection. You can be with each other every day and not be connected. Trust me, we've been there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people confuse that. They think, well, if we're together, like, we live in a small space.
Yeah. We're in a 1-bedroom apartment.
And we are within proximity of each other all the time. Right? And yet we'll go days without, by my definition and yours, connecting.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go for days without connecting until we're conscious of it.
Well, I think we're always conscious of it. I think we are really good at voicing it.
Yeah.
It's like, and you're absolutely right. It's like proximity, people think is like, because we do life together, because we do life together.
Yep.
And it was that not always the case, because I used to work somewhere really far away, and I used to leave really early in the morning and come like later in the night. So we really we used to not see each other a lot during the day. And now we both work some from home. And so we're very together. And we're very conscious, and we both are really good at voicing, like, I feel disconnected. Like, we feel disconnected from one another, which then takes me to my second point, exactly what you're saying, is disconnection doesn't mean the end of the world.
No.
And that's something that you have taught me so much.
Yeah.
I have, because of the past.
Yeah.
I do have a very visceral reaction to disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
My body feels very unease. It feels like something is gonna happen, that it's gonna like break us, like at any moment. Like it feels like connection feels like a beautiful armor that is protecting the relationship, and disconnection feels like that armor comes down, and we are exposed to the dangers of the world. That's how it feels like that to me, disconnection.
Right.
Like when we're connected, I feel like nothing can tear us apart. Like we are so fucking strong. And when we have disconnection moments, I feel like, oh my God, we're so vulnerable to other people, to busyness, to, yeah. And like breaking up a relationship, all those things. And so I have a very visceral reaction. But I think what I have learned is that as long as we are aware of it, and then we work towards having moments of connection, even in the disconnection moments, that then we'll eventually come right back into connection.
Yeah.
And you have taught me, because I get very scared when we have moments of disconnection.
Yeah.
Again, it's like a visceral situation, because there was a point in our life when we got disconnected at the beginning of this relationship.
Yep.
And shit did go down.
Yep.
And so I think I carry that somatically in my body, like, oh my God, this is danger space. This is danger space. And you have told me you have to be okay with us not being okay all the time. As long as we are both working towards getting back to that connection, we will be okay.
Yeah. I think the difference here is like, in the early days of our relationship, when there were trust issues, for example, I was often the perpetrator of that. And so it's going to be a different experience for you than me presently.
Yeah.
I know what my experience is with you in this relationship. You know what your experience is with you in this relationship. I am 100% confident in the direction that we're going in, because you've never given me a reason not to, and I have. And so I am very, very conscious of that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I can't say I'm conscious of our disconnection every single day. Right. I don't have to be. Right. Because it didn't happen to me. It happened to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So
Thank
of
you
course,
for saying that.
yeah,
very emotional. Thank you for saying that.
Of course, baby. So it's like, yeah, we get disconnected. You get scared, because of what happened.
Yeah.
And again, for me, it's like I've done so much work on myself, and I'm still doing it. And I have I don't know how else to say it, but I have transformed in a lot of ways.
You have. You really have.
Thanks. And you can only see so much of that. So my point is, I get it. Yeah. And another thing about connection for me, and everybody's different, another thing that I've learned about myself, and I've gotten better at this, is when we get into a fucking fight, right? You want to figure it out right there. You know, you want resolution in the moment, and I got to walk away because I'm going to say some bad shit and I'm going to blow up, you know. And I know this about myself. And what I used to do is I didn't ask for what I needed or communicate what I needed. And that just made things worse. And you couldn't understand, correct me if I'm wrong, you couldn't understand at first that it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with that. Like,
Right.
I grew up with, like, you know, we would have family meetings and we will figure it out. You know, we would spend like hours, my siblings, my parents, and I, and like hours talking about the situation. We would order, you know, we would have tequila and we would order, you know, once we were older.
Well, that makes sense. Like that, I get that. Like that's a scheduled family meeting. But I'm talking about in the moment.
It got pretty heated at
Sure.
certain moments where, you know, chairs were thrown and things were said,
Yeah.
but we never left. Like nobody fucking left the room. And so when people, because this is not the only relationship that this has happened to me, where there's a person that can't handle or it's not like you can handle it. It's like a different way of conflict resolution. And I have felt abandoned. I feel abandoned. I feel like, oh, this person is leaving. I understand that you're coming back. They're just going for a walk. But like in that moment, it feels you're leaving forever and you're
Sure.
leaving the relationship. And I have to do a lot of talking to myself that is not the reality, that is my past talking, that it is like certain situations in life that have brought me to that, and that it is not the truth, that you're not abandoning me, that you also have to take care of yourself in those moments.
And I have to take care of the relationship.
And sometimes walking away for a second, it is taking care of the relationship. It's just, I would say, is the way that we do it. You know?
Yeah, I used to, for example, when you would say something that would just fucking stop me in my tracks, I would be like, nope. I'd get my shit and I'd leave and I wouldn't say a fucking word, right? And I had every intention of like, I don't know when I'm coming back, right? Nowadays, what happens is, I like to think most of the time, one of the things that's still a work in progress is saying, I'm really angry right now. I'm so angry right now.
You have said, you're really good now.
Oh, good. Well, I thank you. And the other thing is simply saying, we need to shelve this. I got to go for a walk.
Yeah.
Either talk to my sponsor, but oftentimes I just got to go for a goddamn walk. And
You
then
actually
come
said
back.
it today.
Yeah. I was getting spun. I was getting so spun.
There was like, and I you know, I have this
Taxes.
tendency of like, oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk
Right.
about it together. Let's figure it out, because you're going into a spiral. And I'm like, let's have a conversation. And you're like,
Yeah.
I do not want to talk about it right now. And then I was like, but let's, you know, and you're like, I don't want to talk about it right now.
Because I know myself enough that I am not emotionally regulated right now. And I am not going to get regulated talking about this right now. And that's another thing that I'm working on is how to co-regulate. I have been a self-regulator for so long in my life.
Yeah.
It's, you know, just like whether it was drugs or
I was gonna
alcohol
say external self-hating.
or women. Yeah. It was still a thing.
Yeah.
That I'm not saying women are things by any means, but it was just the experience and the attention and the sex and all of that. Those were all ways that I regulated myself.
Yeah.
And maybe not in the moment, but it kept me regulated.
Yeah.
Right? Even when shit would hit the fan, I don't have any of that anymore. I don't want any of that anymore. And it's been a lifelong journey to learn how to not only healthily self-regulate, But co-regulate has been a big challenge for me.
Yeah.
Because there's a line between co-regulation and
Codependency, yes.
Yeah, and that's a tough line for a lot of us.
It is very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to like do that yet. It is because, you know, sometimes it's unclear.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of stop. And I think for me, when it becomes clear is when you realize where is the space that I am doing it for or from.
Say that again.
Where is the space that I'm doing it from?
Yeah.
So like if I'm talking to you and I'm like, let's talk about this, is it because I want to fix, or is it really because I want to connect and I want to do this together?
And that's the other thing about co-regulation is I've learned how to listen. I was never really excuse me. I was never really a fixer to begin with. No, it's just never been my thing.
Which makes you an amazing listener.
Thank you.
You have always been like such a good listener.
Thank you. I'll give advice when asked. Sometimes I'll get into fixing mode, but very rarely, I think.
No, you're not a fixer.
Yeah, and so I've learned that co-regulating, to emotionally regulate yourself in the presence of somebody else, it's not about getting advice, it's about listening. And a really good litmus test to see if somebody is, let's say I show up or you show up and you're spun out, right? And you just need to talk to get regulated. You just need to share and be heard and be understood. Oftentimes for me, that's all I need.
I know.
And
so fucking hard.
It's okay. It's okay. And one of the ways that one of the things I do with you is I'll throw in like a little joke after a while. And either it's not funny or your humor isn't online yet, which tells me that you are not regulated enough to hear it.
Yeah.
And then I'll back off and just keep listening. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And yeah, man.
Yeah.
So before I ask you questions, I want to say that, well, I think we should do a whole episode about sex.
I mean, that's what the podcast is partially about.
And I'm going to ask you those questions. But one of the things that I have learned with you, because it has been my own sex journey, is that sexuality is not just about penetration. Sex is not just about that. And you have been, and I had to learn that through, Tantra and other resources, but I feel like you have been like such a beautiful sport when it comes down to that. And I'm going to ask you, so I'm going to put a pin on that.
Did you say support or sport?
Sport.
Huh?
Sport.
Sport? Yeah. I've been a good sport about it. Yeah. Okay, I thought that's what you said. Meaning, I love it.
Listen, there are men out there, and I have clients that come to me, and the men are like, I don't give a fuck what she says. I still need to penetrate you to feel like I'm going to have sex, Ooh. And men, there's a lot of men that have a really hard time listening to what that means and what sexuality can be, that is just not. And for us, it has been a journey because our relationship at the beginning of the relationship, before we actually got serious, it was purely and all about sex.
Fucking yes.
We just had sex, and then you would come over, you would have sex, and then you would leave. Yeah. And then we would go on a hike. We did that. We would go on hikes. We would go on a hike.
I think we had sex on a hike.
We did. Yeah. And then we would go to CrossFit, and then we would have sex, and then we would leave.
Yeah.
And so it was there was not a lot of things that were not had to do with sex. And what was sex to us? It was penetration. It was like just purely kind of that.
That was always my definition.
That was mine too. And so it has obviously grown so much since then, and now we have gone through so much journey on our own sexuality, that's why I think it needs to be another podcast so we can dive like really deep into it. But I'm still going to ask you questions about it.
Yeah.
Should I just ask you now? I have them written in down since we're on that subject. Oh,
Got it. That's okay.
that was my water.
One thing I'll comment about
Tell me.
all that stuff, and you may want to edit this out simply because it is a whole nother podcast, a whole other journey.
It really is.
But what comes up for me is how much my libido was tied to promiscuity. And
do you think you have a problem with your libido right now?
fuck yeah.
You do?
I do.
Really?
Well,
That is interesting to hear.
Like we were watching Sex in the City last night.
Yeah.
And some of the people on the movie had been married for 10 years.
And they haven't had sex in 6 months.
Or they have sex 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I'm going,
no.
oh, shit.
No. Okay, let's dive into that then. Because that's something that I actually talk about a lot of my courses, but I don't think we have talked about it. Or we have sort of touched a little bit on it. But to me, because listen, there was a part of a moment in our life, in our relationship, that the libido was lost for me. And the disconnection was very intense between the two of us. We wouldn't touch, we wouldn't hold hands, we would sleep like facing the opposite way. Like it was very disconnected. I know it's really sad, but it was really
sad hearing about it.
It was really disconnected. And so I stopped buying into that narrative of having sex a certain times a day, times a week makes you a closer couple.
Yeah.
Not only because I started doing the research, but I met couples that have sex so much.
Yeah.
And their relationship is such shit. And they're in the weeds of it all. And they think that because they have sex a lot, that's an indicator of something.
That their relationship's okay.
Because we have bought into that in the culture. We have bought that the more sex that you have, the more in the good place that you are in your relationship.
Well, also, I think that some people use sex as a way to deal with their shit.
Yes.
I would think that if you got 2 people who are using sex to deal with their shit as opposed to another way.
Well, and honestly, men are the ones that deal with a lot of the stuff. A lot of the problems that women come to me is like, he wants to have sex and I don't.
Is that right?
Yeah. And the reason is that women need another type of like connection, excitement before of sex. And so my measurement, I don't measure our relationship, or I don't count like how many times a month, like a week we have sex, because we do have erotism during our weeks. And that to me is really valuable. I feel very full. And so at the time that I do have sex with you, it feels really connected.
Yeah.
And erotism to me means that we touch each other a lot. We make out with each other.
Erotism? I don't know
Eros.
Yeah. Eroticism.
That.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Listen, 10
That's
years
cool.
and he still cannot understand my fucking accent.
I like the way you said it. Okay.
Erotismo is in Spanish.
Erotismo.
And so I don't feel like we're lacking of something. And honestly, I don't feel like your libido is down at all. I think that you were a person who was using sex for many other purposes and not necessarily connection. You were using sex for avoiding feelings. You were using sex to make yourself feel worthy. You were using porn to to turn yourself on in a different types of way. You were using other women and fantasies, and now that is not part of your existence. Now you are using sex to connect. Now it might be feeling like the libido is down, but anytime I jump on you, you're fucking ready to go. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think what it is because it's like, how do I put this? Like, I'm not initiating it enough. Like I'm not jumping on you enough. But when you say that, when you come at me with the intention, like, we're going to fuck. Yeah, I am ready. I'm down.
But you do come at me a lot. You don't feel it? That's interesting.
I think part of it is, part of it is age. And we've talked about this too, that, and again, I think this might be a whole nother podcast, but how, because I tied my libido was so tied into my promiscuity that when I finally let that go, part of my libido went with it. Like,
but also part of your identity went with it.
Yeah, and that's been difficult. I know we're switching gears here, but man, rediscovering my identity in the marriage has been it's been a huge challenge for me. Yeah.
I know. Listen, same but different for me. You know, it's like I didn't think that I was going to be married when we did. Also, we have to mention that, yes, we had sex a lot, like before we get married, but then when we decided to make this like a serious relationship, we got married within 6 months of that. So that kind of happened really quickly. We've known each other for a long time, but we weren't having a relationship. But we were just having sex. And so the situation was that you were a person that said, and when we met, you said that you were like, I'm never going to get married. I'm just going to be with a motorcycle and my dog. And that's it for me. And that was part of why I was just having sex with you. Because I was like, okay, this is a guy that doesn't want to get married. And this is a guy that just wants to have sex.
If I can interject, what you just said really, really resonated with me, because that was part of my identity for so long. You know, I was almost 40 when we got married. And what you just said, just my motorcycle, and my dog. I think at the time I didn't even have a fucking dog.
You didn't.
Right? But that was me. That was like at the core of me. And here we are.
Your identity, though.
The core of my identity. And here we are 10 years later. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. That's the weird part. Is like, I don't want to be without you. And yet, I'm still trying to figure out who the fuck I am.
Yeah, you're trying to find yourself again.
It's weird. Yeah.
I think a lot of people find themselves in that situation.
I think a lot of men do.
And a lot of women
too.
I think women, that part of what you're saying happens to a lot of women when they have kids. Because their identity completely changes. And so I think men when they get married, and then women when they have kids. I think those are the two like main. I'm not saying that men don't when they have kids too, or like when women also, they probably do have certain type of change when they get married, but I think it's more intense for men in the marriage getting married, and more intense with women of having a child. And to what does that mean? And to me, it has been an interesting journey because, and we've recently talked a lot about this, so I want to touch on it because we had a lot of conversations about this lately. Which is our relationship. At this moment, I feel like it's pretty solid. Of course, we still go ups and downs, and disconnection and connection and all the things that you know people do because we're people living in this crazy fucking world. But it's pretty solid at this point. And then I had this like a little bit of a breakdown, and within myself that was like, oh my God, we don't have anything that is tangible that is keeping us together. And that gave me simultaneously so much freedom and happiness and terrifying intensity. To the point where I was like, oh my God, no. Like, I don't know. And then I was like, oh my God, this is why people have children. This is the reason why couples have children, because they can have something outside themselves to like connect them to one another. And I'm not saying that is the case for everybody, but I was like, there might be some couples that are like, this is a tangible thing, a baby, or a home. We don't own a home, or a business. We don't have a business together.
Or they think it will fix them, or they
Yes.
think it will, like children or a house.
Yeah.
And the truth is, either it doesn't, or they just wind up resenting each other.
Or it might, you know what I mean? Who
Sure.
am I to tell you people that
Yeah,
doesn't, you know, it might join you into a purpose. And that is another thing that we were talking.
Yeah.
The situation is that we've been together for 10 years and we don't have anything tangible. Like if we were get to get divorced today, the only thing that we would have to figure it out is who takes what furniture.
Pretty much.
That is kind of like, it's very clean, you know, it's just like, okay, like here, la la la, there's la la la,
Yeah.
all right, like, see you later, peace out.
Yeah,
We'll
and-
never have to see each other ever again.
And what I love about that is that makes it a choice every day. But
I know.
I also know that can be terrifying too.
But that is beautiful. And like, that's one of the things is like, oh no, we are here because we fucking want to. Like, because there's nothing tying us down, because there is no responsibility outside of ourselves that makes us have to be in the relationship, then we just are because we want to, because it's a choice every day. But the situation is that I don't know people outside of us that have that. And so then it's scary. At least they have a dog. We don't even have a dog.
or they have a business together or something like that.
And actually, yeah.
I just, my journey has been about, so our marriage for me is in part, we go out into the world, we explore, right? And I don't know about you, but for me, any kind of exploration that I do, which is worthwhile in life, is gonna fucking derail me. I'm just gonna go off the rails, right? Because we get upset, or we fail at something, or whatever the case is. We get angry or frustrated, and then we come back, right? And we talk about it, and we share it, and we regulate each other, and we go back out and we do it again. And then we come back and we help each other, and we go back out and we do it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, this got really dark because the cloud came in.
And you can't do that unless you can't do that with somebody that you don't know if they have your back or not.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can do that with someone unless you trust them implicitly. I don't know. I
I believe that. I believe that, and I love this relationship is honestly the relationship of my dreams.
because you have to have someone in your life, whether you want to or not. This is biology too. We're a social species.
Yeah.
And if you are a self-proclaimed loner, well, guess what? You're kind of fucked, because we do need each other.
Yeah.
It's how we evolved.
Yeah.
Was to emotionally co-regulate with each other. And so before you, I never really had, I call him like my number one, right? Mm-hmm. It's based on, I forget the guy's name, Dunbar, Robin Dunbar. Okay. It's like, every human being, our brains can only sort of handle a certain number of people to recognize and have connective experiences with. And it's like every human being only has like enough bandwidth for like one number one, maybe two.
Yeah.
Right? What I mean by that is your partner, right?
Yeah.
The person that you see every day, right? And most often there is a sexual component to it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you see them every day. You share everything with them. There are no secrets. You share everything with them. And then you got your number twos, your friends, your best friends, right? That you see maybe 2-3 times a week, and there's not really any secrets, but they don't necessarily know everything about you, right? And you can have about maybe 3 of those is what science tells us, is that like we have the bandwidth for about that. And then you got your number threes. These are people you see like maybe once a week, maybe even once a month, right? Mm-hmm. These could be coworkers or people at AA meetings that you run into every week and stuff like that, right? And we can only handle, so to know people, to really know somebody, to not only associate a face with a name, but also a personality, right? Mm-hmm. The cap for every human being is about 150 people. It's why all throughout history, you see these individual tribes never got much bigger than 150 people, right. Even though there were nations of tribes, right?
Yeah.
Army regiments and things like that. Mm-hmm. So you're the first time in my life where I have had like a true number one. And that's why I see our relationship the way I see it.
Yeah.
That the most important thing is that connection and that trust.
Yeah. I love that. And honestly, I think I was saying before, but it is simultaneously the scariest thing, not because it's scary, it's just it's scary because I don't see it. Mm-hmm. I don't, none of my siblings, have this. They all have kids. They all have,
right.
None of my aunts, none of my, my friends, like they all have like either home or a kids or a dog at least.
Yeah.
They have something. And so for me, it's like, oh my God, are we doing something wrong? Like, and simultaneously I go, this is the relationship of my dreams.
Yeah.
Because I have always been a really highly independent person.
Yep.
That loves to share my life with somebody, but go also explore the world in my own specific ways. Mm-hmm. And I have been in relationships that is like, we have to do all the things together. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But what if your person doesn't like that kind of music, or like, doesn't want to go to that concert, or,
right.
Doesn't like witchy shit, it's like, so are you going to stop doing the things that you want because your person doesn't, or the other person just highly compromises, but she doesn't want to be there, or he doesn't want to be there. And so,
yeah.
And so like we find, you and I, things that we can connect to each other. Nature is one. Mm-hmm. A lot of the things or dates or whatever is like we go on like hike or camping or, road trips, and like we do that simultaneously. But then there are things like I just do with my friends, like I'm going to go to this witchy circle somewhere, or like I'm going to go dance salsa with this group of friends. And like I have a person at home that when I come back from like the salsa dancing all night, whatever, you're like so happy to see me. And you're like, in your own world too, at home doing something.
Yeah.
And we can like meet each other up. How was it?
Yeah.
And we can just like, I can put my PJs on and we can just have a beautiful, amazing conversation and connection. And there's nothing like, well, who did you dance with? Like, da-da-da-da-da. Like, there's no grilling. There's like fully trust that I can go into the world and then come right back. And I thought about this too with sisters, with the journey of sisters, that I felt so held in the craziness of it all, that I could go home. And even though there was a lot of disconnection because we didn't have really time to connect, like every time I would come home, I would feel held and supported.
Good.
And then I could like go into the world, do what I'm doing, have all the interviews, and I will come back home and you're like, do you want a bath? Like you want to,
That's the name of the game right there.
And you were so supportive, even though I didn't feel connected. We didn't feel connected, but even in the disconnection, we can still be there for each other.
Yes, we absolutely can.
And so there's no like, oh, because we're disconnected, I'm just gonna like opt out of the relationship or opt out of your life just because we feel disconnected. It's like, oh, we're disconnected, but still, do you want a bath? You want lunch? Like, like we can, let's go for a walk. Like we do things to come back to connection.
Right. And I have to watch out for this, is that I am habitually avoidant. I'm habitually dismissive. And I'm a fucking addict.
That's attachment theory for everybody. That
Yeah. Just throwing that in there.
And you're an addict.
And on
yes.
top of it, I'm an addict. So basically what that means is I have a very, very, very high tolerance for emotional pain.
Yeah.
I have a very low tolerance for emotional intensity. So like you will think to yourself, oh, I'm going to go give baby a hug, or I want to talk to him, right?
Yeah.
Or you'll think, oh, I want to call my friend,
Yeah.
see how they're doing. In part, that is because there's something in your body going, you've been alone for a little too long. You've been away from your man just a little bit too long, even though he's in the garage. So it's time to connect, right? And it's time to connect with your friends, okay? Before you get to the point of just abysmal desperation because you listen to your body
But
on a level that you're not even, I would say, dare I say, conscious of. Whereas me, I can be alone for 4 or 5 fucking days and not talk to anybody.
But you do talk to me.
Yes. And what happens is that little ping of you need to connect is not even on my radar until I'm in so much turmoil and dysregulation that I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And I have no friend, Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I think for me, what I have learned is that I didn't, like, my connection basket is not just into one person. Like, it's not just you.
It never has been for you.
No, that's true. It has never. But I did grow up with the idea that well, actually, no. I mean, but a lot of the relationships that I see around me is like they are holding on to each other for connection of just everything. And for me is like, I need community like I need air.
Yeah.
And so one person could not give me the connection that I need in my life. I don't care who they are. Like, it's just not,
Yeah.
I love connecting one-on-one to people, but I do have like many, many different pockets of friends that give me different things.
Absolutely.
Also like have different groups of friends and different groups of people that do give me that.
Right.
So it also takes the responsibility off of you that you have to give me all of that. We have to give that to each other solely, because there is no person that can give you all the things that you need.
Nope.
It's just like, it's just unattainable. And then you end up just feeling really disappointed that you're not getting what they have taught us. It's like, oh yeah, the one you will feel la 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 la. And that means also like, oh, he will fill your cup. It's like, no, not one person can. At least for me, I don't feel like that is a sad expectation that we put into another person. Even sexuality, like my sexuality I share with you, and that's a sacred thing for me that I only get to share with you. But I experience sexuality in many other ways, like by eating a delicious hamburger, but like laying in the ground, but like touching myself with like, some lotion, and like having a moment to myself and breathing into and so you don't even have the responsibility for me to be sexually full, and it's like unfair to always just put the other person, like I'm like sexually starving unless the other person gives it to me. That's very unfair to put into somebody, because we all are in different cycles, and women are in different cycles. And so it's like, sometimes I don't want to be touched. And sometimes I just want to be touched all fucking day. And sometimes you're not here, And like, what am I going to do? Go outside and like want to fuck somebody? No, I'll lay in the fucking ground.
I'd appreciate it if you didn't.
Lay in the ground and be with myself and feel myself, And like, that is the difference. I'm not asking you to fulfill me in all the ways. It is part of each other's job to also do it for ourselves. And then, there are times that I am completely like drained of life. And then I know that you can give me things, that I need, and that your support and all the things, and you're there for me.
Yeah. That's a really, really, really good point. I was going to say that. So I don't have any problem with touching on something that you said. I certainly don't have any moral issue with anyone who wants to have sexual experiences with more than one person. I just know for me, and we've talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Ad nauseum. I just know for me, I don't have the emotional bandwidth for it. And yet, at the same time, one of the ways that I keep myself regulated is by keeping secrets. Yeah, and it can be anything, but I have to have a secret. I have to have a secret so that, because there's something about being known, on being exposed 100%, that I find highly dysregulating. I don't know why.
And yet, what you said before.
What did I say?
It's like just a couple of minutes ago.
What did I say?
You said that your first base person.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
all about like they fully know you and there's no secrets and there's nothing to it. Yeah.
Yep. But one of the ways that I keep myself self-regulated is by keeping.
Because you have said there's okay, so there are things. I think there's a difference between secrets and then like your own world.
Autonomy. Absolutely. I think so.
So there is a difference between like, I'm not sharing everything that is in my head at all times, at all constantly, at all the things. There are certain things that I might keep to myself, for my enjoyment. And I don't feel like I have the need or I have the have to share with anybody.
Right.
But that's one thing, but it's not hurting anybody.
It's usually got to be one thing that I don't know how to say this because I don't know if it's accurate or not. It's got to be at least one thing that would be disapproving, or it's got to be one thing. It had to be one thing that like I knew that. It's almost like it had to be one thing I would be ashamed of if I got
if somebody
caught.
will find it.
Yeah, and
that's
was
shadow.
Yeah, and I wanted my shadow to myself.
But that shadow.
So yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if we're going to talk about it in terms of shadow, I needed to keep my shadow. Yeah. And if
the shadow needs to keep you in the dark.
Yeah, and if I were to expose it, I'd have to let it go. So
yeah, because the shadow dies with light.
So I wanted to keep my shadow. I wanted, not all of them, but it took me a long time to let go of my shadows. And so, like, keeping my shadows, this might be too much information for your audience, but I think we've already talked about it. Like, keeping some of my shadows with the sexual component, with the promiscuity component, with the attention from other women. Like, as long as I had that, I could be okay. And when I let it go, I got completely unraveled. Yeah. And then so it's like, well, at least I still got my drugs or whatever the case is, right?
And then you don't.
And then I had to
drugs.
let that go, right? Well, at least I still got shoplifting, and then I had to fucking let that go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like and what's really fucked up is like, I don't know who I am.
Without those things, because there was so much part.
I'm just kind of floundering through this world, like.
But there was so much part of your or your identity, and I think that's what it is. And I think we have to close.
Okay.
And it's just to close this. We are such different people from the beginning of this relationship to now. We don't have any problem exposing all the things like you just said about secrets and how much that has changed your life, and then how much. So I think for me, the big lesson is two people that are willing to work through shit together. Even though it was a very, very intense moment, it was very dark. There were points that just got really, really, really dark with a lot of the stuff together. Yeah. But the lesson is both of us wanted to work on it. Mm-hmm. And both of us were willing to put effort into it. Therapy, meetings, courses, whatever it was, to find our individual selves again, because we got lost within the relationship. We got lost. And we got to find our individual selves again and then share each other from that different space. But I feel like because we went through it and we like learned so much and stuck with it, and that now any other situations,
Yes.
I'm just like,
yes, bring it.
There's nothing.
What the fuck could you possibly do to me now?
Yeah.
Right? And that's been our superpower since then. Like our superpower
really
is working through shit. And your superpower, in my opinion, especially, is you have been completely accepting of me to the point where I'm not afraid to tell you anything anymore. Because, like, I mean, I just want to say to your audience, like, you have no idea, like, how I lucked out marrying this woman. She is completely accepting of me. And even when I have to tell on myself for something, she accepts it. And I just like, what? I didn't even know that was possible. Like over the weekend, right? When I did this stupid, silly thing. And I was really ashamed of it. First person I called was my wife. Who does that? Who does that? So there you go.
Thank you, baby.
I mean, I went from being a promiscuous, lying, cheating drug addict to this. Go figure.
To one of the most amazing human beings. But I just have to say that the reason why I stuck with you with it is because I knew your heart.
Yeah.
I saw your heart through all of those things.
Thank you, baby.
And I saw that you really were willing to put the effort to really understand where all these things coming from.
Yeah.
And that is not a one person. It was never a blaming game. It was never like you did this and I did that. And because we never blamed each other for what we were going through, we took responsibility of our own shit. And then we were able then to move together through the next phase. And so I feel like if you are in the middle of a shitstorm with your person, if both of you are willing to work it through, if they both are willing to really look at yourselves in a very raw way, and then accept each other for the moment that you're in. You know, it's like you cannot move forward if you don't see the reality in front of you. And so it's like you have to accept the moment that you're in. You cannot sugarcoat it. You cannot be like, no, you are like, I'm in this shit with my husband. And like, I see that he's this, that, and I am this, that, at the other. It's like, you have to be really honest, be willing to see it. But when on the other side of that, there's so much connection. There's so much power. It's like, I feel like that is our superpower, being like, oh, we went through that. So anything else, we're like, I mean, whatever, like we've been through so much shit. And so every time we have to kill, and I talk a lot about this, like kill and restart our relationship based on, just dynamics, nothing like big that has happened. It's scary, but at the same time, it's never going to be as scary or as hard or as bad that it was at the beginning. So now we have tools to help us walk through it, and now we know what it is. And thank you for your lovely words. I'm going to end this with saying that, what I say before, I've said this before of our relationship, which is the most hard parts. I don't recommend it. I don't wish it upon anybody.
Yeah.
But I will not change one thing about our journey.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but you're right.
I would have gone through it all over again, all the pain, all the intensity, just to get to the point to be the person that I am and be the person that you are after all of it.
Yeah, I don't like it when people say that usually about I wouldn't change anything. I got a million regrets. There's all kinds of shit I wished I could change about my past, but when I think about it, this is not one of them, right? Yeah. Everything that we went through, how else was I going to get through it?
Yeah. It has a purpose. It truly has a purpose.
Yeah, you're right.
It truly does.
Yeah.
All right, baby. I hope that you can come back and we can talk all about deeper into sex.
Me too.
Because we have so much to talk about sex and so much. We're recently exploring some things too sexually.
Yeah.
That were really fun. And we can tell our audience later what are the things that we're exploring sexually, not in this episode, but in the next one.
To be continued.
TBD. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you resonate with this, if anybody that you think that can resonate with this, send it to them. Leave us a comment, only if you like the podcast. If not, then don't leave us anything. And write your review. That's how, that's what podcasting is. It's just we put up content, we tell our truths, and it's up to you to share it with the world, with your people, share it with somebody that's going through it, to give them a little bit more like hope. I think our story, it's a beacon of hope. So you can definitely do that. And
hope, and you're not alone.
Hope, and you're not alone. We're here to support you in that journey. I love you, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week with a Spanish episode.